All right, guys, good to get back to things here. And so what I want to do now is the Lord has been showing me things about Pentecost for a couple months now. So I wanted to get to what he's been revealing to me and to really show you this, because one of the things you're going to see that I'm going to show you is really going to surprise you. When the Lord showed me this, I was blown away, because I don't think I've ever heard anybody mention this. And I mean, this is an event that took place right in front of our eyes that we all witnessed, but I don't think anyone picked up on what exactly was being done. So, I can't wait to get to that. But in order for me to get to that, I need to do a quick video here to explain for those who don't know exactly what Pentecost is. Okay. So this series is going to be maybe 3 or 4 videos about Pentecost. But this first video here is just to explain what Pentecost is. Okay. So let's get to this real quick. No need to take up a lot of time. But for those who don't know, Pentecost is one of the 7 Moedim, the 7 feasts of the year for the Lord. These are God's feasts, as you guys know, if you study Bible prophecy, that he commanded for the Jews to keep every year as their holy convocations, their dress rehearsals, okay, that would be of what would be fulfilled later on by Christ. But these were dress rehearsals that they were to keep every year, okay? So, as you guys know, the first one is Passover, and these start in the month of Nisan in the spring. The second one is unleavened bread, and that lasts for 7 days. During that time, you have the third feast, which is first fruits. Then you have feast number 4, which is where we're getting to right now, which is Pentecost. That's coming up in just a couple weeks, about 2.5 or 3 weeks from now. That's the 4th feast. That's Pentecost. Then you have feast number 5, which is the Feast of Trumpets. Number 6 is the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. And the 7th and final feast is the Feast of Tabernacles, which is Sukkot. Now, Hanukkah is a feast of the Lord. It's the festival of lights. It means dedication. Also, it's the rededication of the temple, but it was not one of the 7 ordained feasts. Hanukkah is something that was established later. The Lord prophesied it before it came to pass. He prophesied it in Haggai chapter 2, which is crucial to understanding the end times. And as I explained to you before, the Great Tribulation is going to begin this year on Hanukkah in December this year. But we're sticking right here to the 7 ordained feasts that were ordained by God, and that's in Leviticus chapter 23. So when we go in chapter 23 real quick, and we'll read. Now, in order for you to understand Pentecost, you must understand the Feast of Unleavened Bread, as I said, which lasts for 7 days. So let me show you the timing of unleavened bread, because you can't count to figure out Pentecost unless you know when unleavened bread was, okay? So in Leviticus 23, verse 6, it says, "And on the 15th day of the same month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread unto the Lord. 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread. In the first day ye shall have a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein. But ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days. And in the 7th day is a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein." So what God was saying was, on the 15th day, Nisan 15, they are to start a feast for 7 days. And so day 1 and day 7 are both Sabbaths. They are holy convocations where no work is to be done. They are Sabbaths. That's important that you understand that, because you have some people, mainly Christians, I think you'll hear that'll say this, and this is not to criticize my fellow brethren. Of course, I'm a Christian, but a lot of times you'll hear Christians saying that based on that scripture, that means that Pentecost has to begin and end on a Sunday. It has to fall on a Sunday, because as you'll hear in verse 15, the Lord talks about how you must count from the Sabbath, and you arrive at the day after the 7th Sabbath. And they automatically assume that by Sabbath the Lord means Saturday, the 7th day of the week. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about counting from the Sabbaths of unleavened bread, which is day 15 and day 21 of Nisan, the first day and the 7th day. He's talking about those Sabbaths. And you are to count from the first Sabbath, when the priest is able to begin the sheaf of the wave offering, okay? So when is he able to do that? The priest cannot do that on the Sabbath day, which is the 15th day. The first day he can bring it is the very next day, which would be Nisan 16. So when you're counting Pentecost, you start counting, as I have here, it would be the 50th day counting from Nisan 16. Nisan 16 is the first day that the priest can bring the wave offering and present it on your behalf to the Lord. Nisan 16, which is the second day of unleavened bread. That's where you begin to count from. So now, in the same chapter, Leviticus 23, we skip down to verse 15. And this is where we see how we come out to the 50th day. And it says, and ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath. He's talking about this first Sabbath of unleavened bread from Nisan 15. He says from the morrow after that. So you count from Nisan 16. You shall number 50 days from that. And ye shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord. You shall bring out of your habitation 2 wave loaves of 2/10 deals. They shall be of fine flour. They shall be baken with leaven. They are the first fruits unto the Lord. And ye shall offer with the bread 7 lambs without blemish of the first year, and 1 young bullock, and 2 rams. They shall be for a burnt offering unto the Lord, with their meat offering, and their drink offerings, even an offering made by fire of sweet savor unto the Lord. Okay, and it says in verse 19, then ye shall sacrifice 1 kid of the goats for a sin offering, and 2 lambs of the first year for a sacrifice of peace offerings. And the priest shall wave them with the bread of the first fruits for a wave offering before the Lord. With the 2 lambs they shall be holy to the Lord for the priest. And ye shall proclaim on the selfsame day that it may be a holy convocation to you. Ye shall do no servile work therein. It shall be a statute for you forever in your dwellings throughout your generations. Okay, so Pentecost is the 50th day, counting from Nisan 16, from the second day of unleavened bread, the day that the priest can first bring an offering of first fruits. You are to count 50 days. Now, the Lord said you count 7 Sabbaths. This is the way to count it. You count 7 Sabbaths, okay? 7 weeks from there, and you arrive at the 7th Sabbath. Now, obviously, 7 times 7 would be 49. And then he says you offer it. It is to be brought and waved, is to be brought out of your habitation and waved on the morrow after the 7th Sabbath. So if the 7th Sabbath would bring you to day 49, obviously the morrow after would be day 50. So when you look at the calendar for this year, for 2019, the Jews were on the correct timing of God this year. They didn't need to add, they weren't off by a month or anything like that. The new moon, the first new moon of spring was April 5th. That was the dark moon conjunction. There's a little bit of debate whether or not they saw the moon. It was questionable when they first saw the sliver of the crescent moon, whether it was April 6th or April 7th. But let's assume they saw it on April 6th. That would mean the 7th would be day 1, okay? So if April 7th is day 1, Nisan 1, then that means that Nisan 15, the first day of unleavened bread, is April 21st this year. That would mean April 22nd would be Nisan 16. So when you count from Nisan 16, April 22nd, that brings you to the 7th Sabbath would be June 9th. And that means the 50th day, or Pentecost, would be June 10th. If the Jews saw the moon 2 days late, which there were some that say it was seen 2 days late, then that means it was seen on April 7th, which means April 8th was day 1. That was Nisan 1. So that would mean that April 22nd was the first day of unleavened bread. And that would mean that April 23rd would be Nisan 16. So when you count from April 23rd, you then arrive at June 10th being the 7th Sabbath, and June 11th would be the 50th day. So this is why I have here, I know some of that may have been confusing, but I just wanted to explain it to you so you understand. But bottom line, in 2019 this year, true Pentecost on God's calendar is somewhere between June 9th and June 11th. Now, I lean towards it being the 11th, but it would begin somewhere between the evening of the 9th, and it would end either on the evening of the 10th or the evening of the 11th. Okay? So that's why I have here June 9th to the 11th. That's true Pentecost this year. The true 50th day would be June 10th or 11th. Okay? And as I said, depending on which day it is, it would start either on the evening of the 9th or the evening of the 10th. All right? So, I mean, you can see why this is one of the things that Pentecost is called among the Jews. It's known as the festival without a date, because there's always confusion as to exactly what day it is. So that kind of lends credence to the whole no one knows the day or the hour thing. You know what I mean? That if Pentecost is to be the rapture, you can see why there would be, some confusion as to trying to pinpoint when it would be. All right. So on the Jewish calendar, it falls in the month of Sivan, which is the 3rd month. and it's Sivan 6th or 7th. All right. It was the first Pentecost to be celebrated was when, of course, Moses first went up the mountain to receive the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. Okay. So again, June 9th to the 11th, somewhere in there would be true Pentecost on God's calendar this year. So I just wanted to explain that to you guys so you understand that before I get into the second video here where we start to go into the Revelation. But it was important for you to understand so you know what could possibly, I say possibly, because I don't know that for sure that anything's going to happen. I'm not God. But before I get to what could possibly take place, it was important for me to show you exactly what time frame we should be looking for. So as of right now, being that today is May 22nd, we are about maybe, 2.5 weeks, maybe 3 weeks from true Pentecost on God's calendar and the beginning of some events here. And I'm going to get to the revelation that the Lord gave me right now. We're going to get started on this in the second video.